What do you get when you cross a custom guitar, a sanding company, a surfboard, and the insatiable need to make quite possibly the most niched guitar stand for your very best friends? You get this. Story time. So a few months ago, I started talking with Hannah from SurfPrep. She told me all about this guitar that Ty from Shock the Box makes. And what's great is this guitar is amazing. It's for SurfPrep's custom, but it did not come with a stand. So she reached out to me because I've made a few of those. Here's the kicker. This stand needed to be more than just a stand. It needed to match the quality of this custom build. So I looked it up on AI. And AI has some cracked out business going on. So I designed one all on my own, utilizing steam bit lamination, Pika screws from Andrew Klein, and branding out the wazoo for SurfPrep. Long story short, this is how the build went down. Hope you enjoy. We're starting off with about 10 board feet of maple. And here I am on my Harvey Alpha Series table saw, knocking out little 3/8 inch thick strips of maple. And I about maxed out my clearance, which automatically means
I have to change the boot.
But watch how easy it is to get this guy changed. This is a Harvey table saw moment. So one of the greatest things about the Harvey table saw is that you can change your ribbing knife just this easy. It took seconds. I was able to get back to work, ripping some 3/8 inch pieces with a squinchy eye. And next, we needed to rip up some wider pieces, so I head over to the Wilton vertical bandsaw by Annie's Woodworks. She actually sold this to me years back and introduced me to SurfPrep. This is Circle of Life vibes. If you're singing the song in your head, I'm sorry. And lastly, Roar Rocket Veneer. When searching for veneer, I knew exactly where to go. Roar Rocket has a great product choice, tons of colors. I chose the American flag package, although I'm not using the maple that came in it. I needed the red and the blue that matched SurfPrep perfectly. So next up, I'm going to rip this veneer into the same width strips as I had with the maple. My original design had the maple sandwiching strips of this veneer, which I actually used. You see it on the edge of the final product. But what I didn't tell you was I had planned on bending that whole piece to cradle the bottom of the guitar. And that just straight up did not happen because, spoiler alert, I was not great at bending the maple. But doesn't failure make such a great transition into talking about something else like steam bending? I'm pleased to introduce you to the star of the show,
Bendy Wendy.
My steam bending chamber is powered by a boiling pot, but this rust bucket had to go. So the next day I ran to Walmart, got a new rig, and we were ready to go in the morning.
Steam Bending 101.
Heat up the water, make steam. It goes into your chamber. You load up the wood once the chamber becomes 220 degrees, give or take. The wood goes in. It gets all nice, hot, and steamy. It relaxes the lignin in between the fibers. And then you put it into a mold and you bend it. What I neglect to show you is that I tried this with the maple and I cracked every stick. And I had just enough material, so I abandoned the idea of doing the maple and just planned on bending the veneer. I've got veneer in the chamber from Roar Rocket. My plan is to make 4 different identical curves that will then be glued together and then glued side by side. I'll have 2 different pieces at the end of this. And hopefully, Plan Z will work. I'm about to give you one shot at how hard it was to get this done. I had 4 different attempts at it. This is the 4th attempt, so I'm showing you my best one. My thumbs are in the way. Hold on. Is it gonna slip off though? Have you ever had a clamp slip on you? Look at that. All right, how's it coming, videographer? All right.
Bingo. 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 It's bingo.
Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. But real quick, let's go over the surfboard glue up because I didn't catch that on film and it was a little bit boring anyway. So this is what the glue up looked like to get the strips, and then I planed them, put them on their sides, glued them together, and it turned into this. There it is. She's pretty. Now, gluing up this veneer, it gave me a run for my money, but it was so sweet to see these strips turn into a solid piece. As you can see, it's a lot of snapback. There was a lot of snapback happening. So here's what I rigged up to be able to demold these and keep them somewhat in the same shape that I want to glue them as they're resting, waiting, to be glued. I made up this little jig. I would take my little horseshoe, slide it all the way down, rinse and repeat for the other 3 molds. So once I got all these in their resting place, I started my glue up, and we are kicking this off with BossDog wood glue. I chose this glue because I love the color that it dries to. It's very inconspicuous. It also has a great open time for this project, and this took a lot longer than what I'm showing you on film. The ratchet straps were a lifesaver. Shout out to Bessie. And getting these things tamped down, it just took a bit. So BossDog was a perfect glue for this project. Doesn't this look like one of those ice creams you get from the 1990s ice cream trucks? Just me? Yeah? Okay. So the thought here was to get 4 of these. 2 of them will sandwich a piece of maple so that I get the proper width out of each one of these guitar supports. So I finish up gluing all these out, show you a little weird Pac-Man. So I'm back on the Wilton, gonna cut out these maple strips that I will sandwich in between the veneer that I've just glued up. I ran all these through a drum sander to make sure that they had a perfectly level edge, and then we got to gluing them up. This was way squirrelier than what it looks in the video, so I used a little bit of rapid set along with BossDog, and that took the guesswork out of the whole thing from shifting. Once I got my blanks all set, I ran over to my Pegas Scroll Saw and got to work cutting out the surfboard-esque shape. I really wanted some subtle nods to the SurfPrep brand, and I feel like this is a really chilled out way to do that. I'm super pleased with the outcome. Check them out. So for the rest of this video, basically SurfPrep just shows out. Some of the products that I love most about SurfPrep is their POV8 vacuum that has an automatic start when you start your sander. I'm using their 5-inch first gen sander here, and it just made super quick work of something that would have been really tedious had I been using any other products. Now that they're through their 80 grit, I went ahead and ran over to the router. Harvey has a great extension router table for their table saws that I have adored. I went from a DeWalt table saw and a janky router table to Harvey's Alpha series with this extension, and I have not looked back. Just even setting up for this part of the build took minutes. There was no guesswork. The precision was there. It's just a great system. But still, you gotta respect your router, because watch. That gave me a tiny little pucker, but then I was good to go. We threw a round over on all these little bits and pieces, and the veneer really started shining through. At this point, the veneer was stealing the show for me. It became the focal point that I imagined it to be in this project. The router handled most of the round over, but I couldn't get to the tips, so I knew I was gonna have to do that by hand. I use a combination of ProFoam and my 3x4 SurfPrep sander to be able to knock down that edge and get the appropriate radius. I got these roundovers to match up, looks great. My next step is to finish the grits on the inside and outside of these pieces. Here you're gonna see me use 2 different pads of ProFoam for my 3x4. The first one is the fine grit, which gets it to about 220, and then I'm gonna use the extra fine, which pushes it to 400 to 800. Finally, it's time to start insetting the Pika standoffs. This is a Pika standoff screw. Got to hollow out some material so that this standoff sinks in flush. I have to hit this angle and inset the head of this screw into here. So I grabbed my Marathon Rotary from Bearwood Supply Company and a few burrs from Saber-Tooth. Hitting the angle correctly wasn't as hard as it looked, but it did take a little bit of patience in finding out which burr would get the job done the best. Just wait till you see how this looks. Jumping back over to the backer, which is wonderfully shaped like a surfboard. I am putting it through the 80 grits and getting it ready to run through the router, through a round over on both sides, revealing that veneer in such a really cool way. And now prepare yourself for 30 seconds of SurfPrep magic.
Let's go!
I think we earned a puppy pet on that one. Let's finish this build up with the last design element that I could not put my thumb on until the last minute. I started looking up surfboards and the bottom of them have those great fins. Yep. And so hopefully I did not butcher any design on surfboards too bad, because I am from East Texas, not the West Coast. But I think it looked perfect and it performed the function wonderfully. I sandwiched a little bit of veneer for just the final touch. And lastly, hit it with the ProFoam. And look at the difference between these two. One is ProFoamed and one is not. During my glue up, I left a little bit of a mess, but that's what the 3x4 is for. It took care of it in minutes. And look, it's like it was never there. Lastly, I veneered up a little thing that looked like this, and then I grabbed a laser and I put SurfPrep's name on it. Finally, for my wood finish, I went with Willie's wood finish. Listen what people have to say about this stuff.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Mmm.
Yummy. Oh, yeah.
Hey, wake up. It's time for the final reveal. Some of my favorite features of this build is the adjustable guitar cradle. The Pika screws allow both of those elements to move, to contour to whatever instrument you're putting on this stand, and I think that's just a really clutch move. Also, I love this magnet catch right here where you can clasp it in and it holds that guitar neck wonderfully. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this build as much as I enjoyed building it. A huge shout out to the brands behind this build. Thank you guys for supporting me as a maker. Thank you, SurfPrep, for giving me the opportunity to build something unique and amazing. Thank you, Ty from Chalk the Fox, for making a great guitar for this stand. Leave a comment, like it, subscribe it, especially if you want to see more builds like